Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Just My Stupid Opinion. And it is finally election time. I don't know, personally to me, it seemed like this elections campaign went on for way too long, if you ask me. And we'll end up seeing what the results are going to be. We're going to be checking in periodically. We already have some results that are coming in. Hold on, let me put this to the side. Go. Here we go. So we have, so far, what we have is 24 seats for the Liberal. We have 6 for the Conservatives, 1 for the NDP, 1 for the Bloc Québécois, and 1 for the Greens, although these numbers have been fluctuating throughout the day. I remember at one point I was watching and the Liberals were up to like about 20 seats, and the Conservatives had upwards of 9. I know I saw the Greens had 2 as well so far, so these numbers have been fluctuating, both up and down. We'll end up seeing. We only have the West Coast so far, the East Coast so far. And my dog's being an asshole. I don't know if you can hear that, but he's barking at something. So here we have the results so far. And did you all go and vote today? Let me know if you did, because I'm curious about that. I made my way out to the polls earlier this morning. I made my way out to the polls earlier this morning. And frig, I thought it was kind of interesting because when I made it out to the polls, I got there with my voter card, and I had to show a piece of ID just to show it was me, my driver's license. But I found it interesting that you didn't actually have to show that you were proof of a citizen. Me personally, I didn't have to provide a passport. I didn't have to provide a birth certificate or a citizenship card. I thought that was quite interesting. And right now, the Liberals have a bill that is, the Liberals that are still being voted on, hasn't received royal assent yet, but it's actually saying that you would not require any voter ID in order to, any proof of citizenship in order to be able to go vote. Very interesting, eh? But I get the feeling that this election is going to be rife with voter fraud. We're already actually seeing some of it end up taking place. There's a few things that have happened so far. Hold on 1 second. Let me see. Where did I have it? I think I retweeted it. Not that. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. But it seems that there were some people, there were some robocalls that were going around in which they were told that they could vote tomorrow. Here we go. Robocalls tell voters they can head to the polls a day late. Misleading robocalls reported in Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Election Canada confirms. Election Canada says it received reports of misleading robocalls made to voters suggesting voters actually take place on Tuesday, the day after Election Day. Now, first things first, this is some definitely election manipulation, without a doubt, but if you're dumb enough to actually show up the day after the election takes place, it's taken place on the 21st. It was last time we voted. It was the same way this year around. I'm pretty much going to be the October 21st every single time. And the media, the politicians have been hammering it into your head for the last 2 months at least. October 21st, go out and vote. So if anybody was to actually fall for this, they're dumb as a fucking brick. But let's see what else, because there was actually something else. There's more voter manipulation that was going around. It had to do with the fact that some polls were closed. Here we go. This is from Shannon Stubbs. We were disappointed to hear that the polling station in Derwent, without notice, has been closed. We have been advised people can go and vote on the Eagle View Lodge located at 40802 49th Avenue in Mirnham. Please contact us at Shannon Stubbs if you have questions or need a ride. But pretty much some of these polling stations have been closed, and the excuse that these people have been giving is it's a glitch in the system. A glitch in the system. Well, I don't know if it's different for anybody else, but when I was out at the polls, It was somebody there to greet me, in which they checked my voter card, my voter ID. I walked over to two people who were sitting at the voting booths, who would then give me my ballot, and then they sent me behind to go vote. So what glitch in the system are they talking about? And we haven't even gotten into how much of a third party, how third parties and outside manipulation is going to be affecting our, is going to be affecting these whole situation, the whole voting situation. But here we go. Election day fail. Went to vote 30 minutes after polls opened and was told I could not vote because the official responsible for poll number 141 hadn't arrived. People in this group have been told to wait or leave and come back later. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. Alrighty, let's see. Oh, well. 55,000 expats have voted according to CTV. That doesn't really surprise me. Apparently, there's a number of expats over in China right now. Apparently, there are tens of thousands of people living in Hong Kong and all throughout the rest of China that are going to be voting in our election. Now, the thing is these people become Canadian citizens for one simple reason. These people, they come to Canada, they go through the immigration process, they become a citizen, and then they move back to the countries they come from. The reason they do this is they want access to Canadian resources. They want access to free healthcare, as an example. So these people come in, pay next to no taxes. For a few years, they pay a little bit of taxes, then go home. And whenever somebody's sick, whenever they're sick or their husband's sick or something, that's when they come back to Canada. So they pay none of the taxes, but get to reap the benefits. And it looks like we're starting to see some results coming in on our on the map so far. So we have so far 41 seats for the Liberals, 10 for the Conservatives, 4 for the NDP, 3 for the Bloc, 1 for the Greens. And nothing with the PPC so far, and nothing when it comes to other parties, which would be the Christian Heritage Party, Libertarian Party. I didn't even know this, but there was an Animal Rights Party. I only realized that when I went to the polls today. So that's kind of interesting. And many others. There's a Communist Party. I'm not if maybe you know that. And I do want to thank everybody who is tuned in to me. I know that there's a lot of coverage of this going on right now. I know that Derek Rance is live right now. He's got a whole lineup of people. He's got Lee Stewie on. He's got Rick Boswick, who I had the pleasure of meeting a year ago. Raging Humanist, and a few others that he's going to have on. And there's also the Canadian Patriot Podcast, which is live right now. So I do appreciate you guys tuning in. So it looks like the results for Ontario are starting to come in, as well as Quebec. I'll be quite curious to see what this ends up happening here. For me personally, I'm curious, who would you like to see out of all of the Liberals that are currently in office? Who would you like to see voted out more? Because I think probably the most popular answers people will give you will probably be Catherine McKenna, Chrystia Freeland, and our immigration minister, Ahmed Hassan. I would be fine with just about any of them, but I would really like to see Catherine McKenna gone, I think. I've had enough of her. I'm kind of torn, though, because, Ahmed Hassan, he can do more damage than Catherine McKenna can, I would say. But Catherine McKenna, I find her totally unbearable. Interesting result. The PPC have just won a seat. I'm not sure where, though, because this map sucks. So we're starting to see some results coming in. I'm not going to be on for the end, but I'll be on for a little bit at least. But in the meantime, I got a lineup of things I want to talk about. Some videos that we're going to play. We're going to be jumping back and forth, checking out results. But right now, let's go to... I know what I want to do. So as you all know, about a week ago, a little over a week ago, we had Rosemary Barton and the CBC that were suing the Conservative Party because they took out an ad against Justin Trudeau's government in which they used CBC footage, and they used specifically footage of Rosemary Barton on a panel that they were doing. So they ended up suing the CPC. Now, since then, Rosemary Barton has asked her name to be taken off of the lawsuit, so her name's no longer on there. I get the feeling, though, that the real reason is because that she was, the real reason for that was because she received a lot of criticism, a lot of lashback, especially when it comes to her biases and being impartial. I mean, this was going on as she was a moderator for the debate. Either it was just coming up or during the actual debate itself, they had decided they were going to sue the Conservative Party. Well, Rosemary Barton broke her silence when it comes to talking about her biases and her impartiality, how she maintains this. Now, of course, doing something like this, you would go to other outlets, CTV, Global News, the National Post, somebody who's not your employer, in order to show that there's no conflict of interest here, right? Yeah, no. The CBC decided to speak to Rosemary Barton about where she reveals her keys to nonpartisan election coverage. In her first installment of a new AMA segment on Checkup, Rosemary Barton answers questioners from listeners. The balls that the CBC has in order to have somebody who works for them to come out and speak to themselves, pretty much. Have you ever seen a better example of a circle jerk? But let's see what Rosemary Barton had to say. So we're going to skip a little bit into it because they cover a few different things in here. But it says here, on voting and partisanship, several listeners sent questions about objectivity and bias when it comes to political matters. Barton says she's used to seeing comments online that accuse her of being partisan, but assured the listener that she works very hard to remain neutral. Quote, I don't mind criticism of my work. We are the public broadcaster. I think it's important to hold me accountable. That said, I really don't have a horse in the race. I don't have a partisan bone in my body. It's the way I was raised. It's not who I am. Not a partisan bone in her body. Now, first of all, that actually is against human nature. It's human nature to actually have a bias, to be partisan. I mean, even as much as we try and take ourselves out of the situation. But, I don't really think anybody can believe when she says that to begin with. But then, of course, she's so partisan that she takes selfies with the Prime Minister and posts it all over her social media account. And she's so non-partisan, so against any sort of bias, that she answers the hard-hitting questions. She asks the hard-hitting questions of our leader in charge, such as this.
If you could do any other job and you have to answer, what would it be?
I'd be a school teacher.
I knew you were going to say that.
No,
like aspirational.
But it's what I am.
Aspirational. Something you haven't done.
No, it'd be that. It'd be maybe running a school.
Something at the UN. Something at the.
Oh no! If once I'm done politics, I'm done politics.
Last book you've read or the book you're reading?
Just finished the Patch, which was Chris Turner's history of the oil patch. But I'm also about to start the new Ken Follett, the third book that is the sequel to Pillars of the Earth.
That's your nerdy side.
That's my
your sci-fi nerdy side.
No, it's not sci-fi. it's
These are the hard-hitting questions that Rosemary Barton asked the leader of our government. And I'm actually, one of the reasons I paused it is I'm getting a little worried that I would get struck down if it can't by YouTube, simply because of that the song that is being played in the background. But this is the only one I could find, in which she goes on to ask him what are his favorite type of music. Does he listen to podcasts? Does he ever have the days where he just wants to stay home with the kids? That is some hard-hitting journalism right there. I guess that's the best we can expect from the people at the state broadcaster who receive their money from the government. Now, my first experience to opening my eyes to the propaganda that is the CBC was last election period, federal election period in 2015. Because before, I was just asleep. I didn't think much of it. But I started to notice that during the debates, they came up the topic of how Harper had cut funding to the CBC. And then Trudeau says, I'm going to put that funding back, and then I'm going to give them more funding. So we'll bring it back up to about $1 billion a year. And then on top of that, they're going to get, I can't remember how much he said, maybe like another $100 million. And suddenly the CBC was fawning over Justin Trudeau and giving him all this great press coverage. Something they weren't doing before. That was my first eye-opening experience to the propaganda that comes from the media, but more specifically the CBC. Now, of course, seeing the treatment by both Canadian news outlets and American news outlets of the President of the United States was also another one. Seeing how much they fought against Trump. And then you had Chris Cuomo, I think? Yeah, I think it was Chris Cuomo, who works for CNN, during the 2016 election coverage, where he said that they've done everything they can for Hillary Clinton. So I don't expect much from them. And Rosemary Barton has defended Trudeau time and time again, and that's actually something I showed in my last... That was something I showed in my last live stream. That's the word I was looking for. That was something I showed where she was defending Justin Trudeau when it came to the fact that he said when it came to abortions that, he wasn't going to rule against abortions. It's a woman's right to choose, but, he's really not for them. He's against them. And how it was different from what Andrew Scheer said. When Scheer said that he's pro-life, but he's not going to open debate on this subject. Hiking with Steffi says, no, Bernie won his seat back. Oh, he did, because at least it seemed like his seat over in Boost was under threat a little while ago, but I kind of figured that he was going to pull through because he's the most high-profile candidate there, definitely has the most name recognition. And, he's been elected in Boost for a long time, over and over again. At least I think this would be the third time at least that he got reelected. So I had a feeling that he wasn't going to lose his seat, despite the fact that's what a lot of people were saying. Looks like the Conservatives are starting to close the gap right now. We're looking back. We got 52 for the Liberals, 36 for the Conservatives, 9 for the Bloc, 6 for the NDP, one for the Greens, and suddenly now it's saying 0 for the PPC. So I'm not sure what that's about. But we'll end up seeing. For me, I'm going to be appalled if the Liberals end up getting reelected, even with a minority government, for the stuff that they've done over the last 4 years, for the way that they have condemned the Canadian people. I would be just lose all faith in Canada as a country. I even saw this when recently I was taking an Uber. It was during Thanksgiving. I was taking an Uber to my parents' place. And as I was going up there, the Uber driver, I don't know where he was from. I think he was like an African or something like that. He was asking me and my wife about the election. Which he asked, have you decided who you're voting for? We kind of put, we kind of told him, how our thoughts on the election. And then he was saying how he was thinking about voting Justin Trudeau in again. And I shouldn't say I couldn't believe it, because, you've been seeing the poll results, although I don't really trust the polls. But you can definitely tell that there's still a number of Canadians out there that are willing to let Justin Trudeau back into office, let Chrystia Freeland and the rest of them back in office. Frig, let's take a look. We look over here. We got Newfoundland and Labrador, and they voted for these people. They voted for these people. Meanwhile, many of the people that live over on the East Coast will pack up, fly out to Alberta to go work in the oil sands because there's good money out there. So they'll go do that. And they'll go out there for a couple of weeks. They'll do some work. They'll come home for whatever, about a week or so. Then they'll go back and do it again. And they're voting in a government that wants to actively destroy our oil sands. A government that wants to destroy the well-being of the Albertan people, which is more, it's fanning the flames of this Western exit movement. This split away by Alberta and Saskatchewan from the rest of Canada, because this is the way they make their livelihood. Meanwhile, they're paying ridiculous amounts into the equalization payments that Quebec has been abusing for a long frickin' time. It's over 50% of all equalization payments have gone to Quebec. We're talking over $200 billion since it came into existence. I can't remember the exact year that it was. So I can't really blame the Albertan people for this. But the thing is, too, is like, I don't know why the people on the East Coast would, especially in the places like Labrador, Newfoundland and Labrador, would want to vote in the Liberal Party, because the Liberals have given the Quebec people so much autonomy. It's Quebec right now that is destroying, that is preventing any pipeline from running through their province to make its way over to Newfoundland and Labrador, where it can then be exported to the rest of the world. So there's a lot of money that can be made there, a lot of job openings that can be made there, but instead they're giving credence to a prime minister and a party that would gladly destroy that. It's a little sad, if you ask me. All right, was anyone thinking about voting for Jagmeet Singh? I really hope not, because my thing about Jagmeet Singh, and I've said it for a while, is that Jagmeet Singh, the only problem he has with Justin Trudeau is the fact that Justin Trudeau's policies don't go far enough. It's that when it comes to the fight against the oil sands or wanting to give more social services, his whole problem is that Trudeau just doesn't go far enough. He needs to give more. He needs to fight harder against the oil sands. We need to get off of fossil fuels onto green energy. So that's one of the problems. The problem is, too, is this is a guy that claims to be fighting for the common person. He claims to fight for you and me. He fights for the lower income people, and I definitely fall into that category of the lower income people. Meanwhile, the guy walks around with $10,000 suits and $5,000 watches on, and I'm probably lowballing that anyway. Not to mention that he's also a guy that thinks that Canada is a terribly racist country, a country that is apparently so racist and so white supremacist, they allowed a brown Indian Sikh in as a party leader. Now, if you don't like Jagmeet Singh already, I think you're going to hate him even more after this video. Some of you have probably already seen this, but this was possibly one of the cringiest moments in the entire election campaign.
Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope.
Oh, goddamn. Oh, goddamn. That's hard to watch. I was embarrassed just for him, just watching this. You know those moments where you can't look at the screen and you just want it to be over? The last time I remember feeling like that, it was when I was a child, like very young, and I would watch like scenes in a movie where people kiss, and I'd be watching that with my parents. You know, I just feel all embarrassed and weirded out by it. This is the exact same feeling I get right now whenever I watch this video right here. I think I have something here about where'd it go? Well, I think it's covered in this article here. But anyway, I was saying how Jagmeet thinks Canada is a systemically racist country. So does Elizabeth May. And we're going to cover both of them in here, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, okay. So, it's hard to answer because it makes people uncomfortable, May says at Foreign Policy Platform event from October 11th, 2019. Green Party leader Elizabeth May said today that Canada is awash in racism and the country has to do a better job of confronting it. May made the blunt statement today at a press conference in Ottawa while discussing her party's foreign policy platform. Yes, May said when CBC asked her whether Canada is racist as a country. Quote, it's a hard answer because it makes people feel uncomfortable. The word has so much power that I hesitate to use it. But you can't deny that our society is awash in systemic racism. We're a long way from a society where racism is not at play. So she says this. Oh, you know what? She says a little more. The idea of being privileged, it actually takes me a bit to get it, said May, because I always been active in the civil rights movement. Even when there are best intentions, there's systemic racism in our society. So, as always, when people say this, they say it, but they don't provide evidence. They don't say in what areas is there systemic racism. Just they like to use it as a general term. And don't get me wrong, you could always provide examples of racism in any society. But to talk about Canada or the US or another Western country is systemically racism, as if it has some terrible problem, is just the most ridiculous thing ever. We're apparently we have such a big problem with racism that we're opening up all our borders and allowing ourselves to be completely wiped out, allowing the Western person, the Western man and woman, to become a minority in their own country with everything that we've built, with the idea of every man, woman, and child is equal. We're so open as a society, and actually, in my opinion, way too tolerant than we should be, that we're letting ourselves be completely destroyed. But Singh agrees with this. He says there's no question about it. CBC News asked NDP leader Jagmeet Singh the same question on Saturday when he visited Grassy Narrows, a northwestern Ontario First Nation suffering from years of mercury contamination in its river system and drinking water. There's no question about it, Singh said. If you look at the treatment of Indigenous people, there are decisions being made not to fund basic things like water. There's a decision being made to ensure that Indigenous Canadians don't get the basic funding that is needed. So yes, we've had a lot of problems with the Indigenous community in Canada for a very long time. Even within my lifetime, there were still things such as residential schools that were open, and there's areas where they're having a lot of drinking water problems. But there's things that are being left out when we're talking about, say the First Nations. First of all, they're autonomous. They decide what to do with their land, which means it's actually their responsibility in order to solve this, rather than the Canadian government, because the Canadian government cannot go onto their land. They cannot do anything to that land because it is considered Indigenous land and is separate from the authority of the Canadian government. Now, there's things the Canadian government can do in order to assist them, work with them, but even the police can't just walk onto a reservation. They are Indian land. They have to be invited on and work with the Indigenous people's own their police force, because they have their own police force. But their problem with the water is that, number one, is a lot of these areas, these communities, are not like next to a major city, but they're sort of off in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, which means that there are no pipelines, water pipelines that go out there. There are no water sanitation facilities out there in order to deal with the water problem. And Singh himself has even stated that he would spend $1 trillion in order to solve this problem, but it's money we don't have that we'd be going into a huge amount of debt in order to solve. And even then, it's up, even then, it's up to the Indigenous people whether they really want that from the Canadian government. So, anyway, the Canadian government is apparently incredibly racist, and that means you or me. You and me. We are all racist people living in a racist society. That's why we're all about multiculturalism, right? Let's go to some election results before we move on a little bit. So it looks like we need 170 votes, 170 seats for a majority, and right now we're sitting at 99 for the Liberals, 70 for the Conservatives, 18 for the Bloc, 9 for the NDP, 2 for the Greens, and I'm still only seeing 0 for the PPC, so I'm not sure what's exactly going on with that. Oh, we're up to 73 for the Conservatives, so that's changed. Let's see how far down we've gotten, how far west. So it looks like we're starting to have results come in for Saskatchewan. Manitoba's results are coming in, and we're starting to get our results for Alberta, which means they're all going to Conservative. There is no doubt about that. Now, one thing I'm very curious about looking at is the results over in the GTA, because the GTA is an extremely important area to win for any political party. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to win the election, but if you can win the GTA, then you are going to win a shit ton of votes. And this is actually, and we can see it's mostly going red for the Liberals, but this is actually a good example of why the Electoral College in the US is so important, because right now you have people that are trying to take away the Electoral College. The Electoral College allows this sort of prevents this sort of problem from happening. So you got people stretch across a huge country, and most of those people reside inside of the cities. In the US, it's New York and LA. Those are the big areas. California, the state of New York, and those are more or less your blue states. But these two states make the decision for the other 48 states in the country, where life is completely different. Sure, they've got the most people living in there, but the Electoral College takes away that advantage. And people have the wrong idea when it comes to why the Electoral College was even put into place in the first place. Because the Electoral College, when it was, the idea behind it was to prevent this exact situation, where so much of our election reside on the Greater Toronto area that when they lean one way politically, they make the decision for people who live in Alberta, people who have a completely different lifestyle, people who well, in Alberta's case, these are people that have, these are people who provide the Canadian economy. That's what goes on in Alberta with the oil sands. They're the ones that actually make it that Canada has, that Canada actually survives. If Alberta decided to separate, the Canadian economy would be screwed, because we got all this spending. Like, the debt right now is something between $700 billion and $1 trillion, somewhere in that area. It's been a while since I've taken a look. So we're already spending more money than we're bringing in by a huge amount. And now, if Alberta decides to separate, we've got to slash that funding. And this is why a lot of right now conservative governments want to make the cuts, because they're seeing the debt that has ended up happening. I've always compared it to, it's like a credit card debt. If you got your credit card bill in the mail tomorrow and you were whatever large amount, $50,000, $100,000 in debt, would you keep spending that money on your credit card the way you have? Would you continue spending that money the same way you had for the last few years? Or are you going to start making cuts to your budget, reanalyzing your budget? You're going to start making cuts and analyzing your budget, making sacrifices where necessary. But the government doesn't want to do that. The government always provides a net loss. So at least the right-wing governments are doing what they can to soften the blow there. But right now, I'm not looking what I'm seeing in the Liberals, because my prediction I made, I don't know, about a month ago was that it was going to be a conservative minority government. But if this keeps going this way, it looks like it's going to be a liberal minority government instead. Which, either way, whether it's a liberal minority government or a conservative minority government, it's not looking good. Because the Liberals maintain power and they have a better chance at working with the NDP and the Greens than the Conservatives do. Both these parties, both the NDP and the Conservatives have said, the NDP and the Greens have said that they are prepared to work with the Liberals to form a coalition government against the Conservative Party. So it doesn't really seem to matter much if the Conservatives have a minority government, and if the Liberals have a minority government, well, it's more likely that we're going to see NDP and Greens working with them anyway. And another 4 years of these sort of policies will undoubtedly destroy the country that we know as Canada. All right, let's move on to something else for a little bit before we come back, check some more results. Well, first, 120 for the Liberals, 88 for the Conservatives, 18 for the Bloc, 10 for the NDP, 2 for the Greens, and still not seeing anything for the PPC yet, so we'll see. But this ended up coming out from, where was it? Oh, it's been sort of making the rounds a little bit. Is pole fitness appropriate for children? Now, that's a nice way to put it. Pole fitness, pole dancing. This is actually something that has been suggesting now that children, little girls mostly, should learn pole dancing. Now, pole dancing is a physical activity, but it's an extremely sexual activity, something that should be kept away from all children. But anyway, let's get into it.
This is the pole dancing teacher who offers classes to 8-year-olds as a fun way to exercise.
But this type of Keep Fit for Children has caused quite a storm of mixed reaction. So today we're joined by child psychologist Emma Kenny. She's on Skype. She says kiddie pole dancing is horrendous. And also the instructor who set up the lessons, Zoe Hardy, along with 2 of the mums, Lisa and Lorraine, whose children attend the classes. Girls, thank you.
2 of the moms, of course. Of fucking course. Oh, man. Only 2 women would ever think that doing something like this is a good idea.
Thank you so much for coming in today. Zoe, I want to come to you first. Where did this come from? Because you were a fitness instructor, weren't you?
That's right. Yeah, I'm a fitness instructor.
So where did you think, oh, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, basically, I took an interest in the pole fitness industry and decided to take the classes myself. And as we progressed the adult classes, we then got an interest in the juniors wanting to take part as well. So as we set up at Step Up Studio at Sutton Ashfield, they then asked us if we wanted to take junior classes. And we only took adult classes at the time. And then we said if we get enough interest in the juniors wanting to participate, we will set up a class for them. So that's why we started at the junior classes.
And when you say you were getting an interest, was this the juniors, had they been able to see the classes going on and thought, oh, that looks fun, or was it from mums like Lorraine and Lisa here?
Yeah, that's right. Because we have to set up and everything at the studio they do the dance classes at, they took an interest in what we was doing, and they, got to see some of the stuff we was doing, and was like, they wanted to have a go at it.
What is happening to our society? I thought it was bad enough when we had shows such as Toddlers and Tiaras, which put all these prepubescent girls into a position where they're judged based on their beauty, puts them into a world where we know that low self-esteem is an issue, where we know that eating disorders are an issue, where we're putting them in these positions to be judged by adults on their beauty. And now we had trans children, such as Devin is Amazing, and we have them dancing in gay strip clubs and grown-ass men throwing money at them. And now we're talking about putting young girls, underage girls, into pole dancing classes. Whatever happened to, I don't know, a soccer team doing some running, something else along these lines? Those are physical activities where they get all of their all the exercise they need, but instead, hold on 1 second. Thank you, sweetheart. Wife brought me dinner, so I'm very happy. So, whatever happened to just putting them into a physical activity that was good for them? Because something like this, a sports team, it builds confidence, it builds teamwork, as well as it builds the ability to work independently. And then they're also getting all the physical activity that they need. They're running on the field, they're building muscle, building stamina, but instead we're going to put them into a pole dancing class. You know, some people think I'm crazy because I believe that pedophiles run our world, are in all our positions of powers. But when you see the world moving in this direction, are you really going to tell me I'm wrong?
Thing I just want to say, we've just got to clear this up because this is what you say. It's pole fitness, not pole dancing. Yeah. I think we should have a little look.
Bullshit. Pole dancing. Where do you have, if you want to say quote unquote professional pole dancers? In fucking strip clubs. The moves that you make on a pole like that are all sexual. You're swinging your legs around. You're opening your legs. You can't say that it's pole fitness. It is pole dancing. Don't try and change the terminology, you fucking degenerate.
Yes, we've got the girls here. We've got Tilly May, who's 8, Mia, who's 11, and Timia, who's 8. And they're going to show us what their pole fitness classes are all about. Okay, girls.
Oh. No, I was kind of hoping that these girls were older than this. I feel sick to my stomach.
Take it away.
Are you fucking kidding me? You're telling me that it's not pole dancing, it's pole fitness, and that's the first fucking move she makes?
Well done, girls. I have to say, it looks such hard work.
Nobody is fucking challenging this degenerate fucking instructor about what she's done. I mean, at least they've got the woman, this child psychologist, who seems like she's going to challenge her on it. But holy shit, am I the only one that sees a problem with this?
Yeah, it's really hard work. Obviously, the criticism is always going to be, Rylan said you call it pole fitness, but most people call it pole dancing. And you know, as mums, people are very concerned about, over-sexualising our children. They're growing up too quickly. And the connotations of pole dancing are, in clubs, girls with very little on in front of kind of men who maybe pay to see it. As mums of the girls there, why did you let them do this?
Tilly was bullied at school for being fat and not interested in what the other girls did. So it was advertised, and I just asked her, I says, oh, look, this is advertised and it's another form of fitness. Would you like to give this one a try? Having tried normal dancing and other activities, she just never really stuck to it. She came to it and she's never looked back.
And did you not Were you not concerned as
No.
when you say
Okay, the whole point of being a parent is to say no to your kids when they're going to do something that is bad for them. When they're going to try and engage in an activity that is unhealthy or puts them in a dangerous situation. But none of these fucking mothers want to say no to their kids because they don't want to be a parent. They want to be their best friend. When you're 18, they're grown up, they're adults, they want to make that decision, go for it. I don't give a fuck. But when they're underage and you're going to put them into rooms with adults that don't see any problem with this, you're a bad fucking mother.
No, because it's fitness. When you actually see what they physically do, there's nothing prerogative.
Lorraine, can I ask you? I mean, what do your family and friends think of you letting Mia go to this class?
Yeah,
I mean, have you had any problems from them?
Not really. They're all very supportive. I mean, she's done competitive gymnastics in the past, which I think is very similar to this.
Well,
so,
it's a pole or a bar that's just the other way round.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's tried lots of activities, so this was something new. She likes to challenge herself, so why not?
Okay, so I don't think I had the full clip there because we didn't even hear from that child psychologist concerning this situation. I don't know where it might happen to be, but this is the point that we're at. Actually, more specifically, this is the point that the UK is at, and the UK has been cooked to all hell. The UK has been... Oh, shit. Sorry, I just looked at the results. The UK is cucked to all fucking hell. And I got a couple other stories in which we're going to show how fucked up the UK is. First of all, 140 for the Liberals seats, 98 for the Conservatives, 31 for the Bloc Québécois, 20 for the NDP, 1 for the Greens, still 0 for the PPC or the others. I also got this one here. Let's see. Yeah, it's not saying anything about the PPC, which is kind of surprising. But we'll give it more time and we'll end up seeing what ends up happening. Let's see. What other stories did I have on here? I don't know if I want to get it. That one yet. Fine. We're talking about the UK, so we'll talk about this. It's not a pleasant story. I'm just going to say that right now. Alright, let's see what else I have here. Alright. Couple stories pulled up. Let's get into this. So the UK judge orders forced abortion, says doctors can restrain women to do it. October 15, 2019, UK doctors are to perform a surgical abortion on a woman that's with learning difficulties without her consent, a Court of Protection judges has ruled. The Court of Protection in London heard how an unidentified woman with in her 20s has the mental capacity of a toddler and is believed to be 12 weeks pregnant. The judge has ordered a surgical abortion to be performed on the woman later this week after hospital bosses urged the court to authorize the termination. Mr. Justice Williams has ruled that the medics can physically restrain the vulnerable woman if necessary in order to administer general anesthetic and perform the abortion. Police are investigating whether the woman's pregnancy was caused by an act of sexual assault. Now, whether it was caused by an act of sexual assault or not, that is a choice of the woman and or the victim, whether they want to get the abortion or not. Remember that old saying that the liberals and the left wing of politics love to bring up? That abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Well, I've said at least when it comes to Canada and America, it's safe, it's legal, it ain't fucking rare. When you look into the numbers, especially here in Canada, somewhere between 1/3 and 1/4 of all pregnancies end in abortion. And all these people, they don't want to fucking admit that it's a goddamn child. But we've reached a new point where a woman can be ordered to forcibly have her baby ripped from her womb by the government. we're living in fucking clown world, like that fucking meme says. But let's go on a little bit more what it says. SPUC's Deputy Chief Executive John Dean said, quote, "This is an outrage which should shock every right-thinking person. It is a level of cruelty and barbarity reminiscent to how people with mental health issues were treated in the 1930s of Nazi Germany. To force abortion on any person is abhorrent, and to do so in the name of medicine calls into question the structure of laws and justice in our society." This forced abortion case has occurred only months after a UK judge attempted to subject a 22-week pregnant woman to an abortion against her will. In June 2019, Ms. Justice Levin ordered doctors to carry out a late-term abortion on a woman with learning difficulties, despite admitting it was against the woman's will. Despite admitting it was against the woman's will. The decision was later overturned by the Court of Appeal following a massive public outcry. SPUC's campaign research officer Margaret Acker said, when the case of forced abortion was overturned in June, SPUC raised serious questions regarding how much an inhumane ruling was ever made and sought reassurance that it will never happen again. Astonishingly, less than 5 months later, another similar ruling has been made. What we are witnessing is exploitation and abuse of vulnerable women with learning difficulties. Performing an abortion on any woman without consent is abuse of the worst kind imaginable. I'll second that. A woman understood to have the mental capacity of a toddler cannot consent to sex. We must demand answers as to how this vulnerable woman was ever placed in this situation and ensure that those responsible are brought to justice. End quote. Unbelievable. And the UK is a testing ground for what they can do over in Canada and the US. If they can get away with it in the UK, you better believe they can get away with it over here. Maybe not America, but absolutely in Canada. I'm really not I'm really not coming at you with the nicest stories right now, am I? I'm sorry, I'm subjecting you to this. I just pulled up a bunch of different stories and videos I want to talk about, and then I kind of just came in and started talking about whatever the fuck I wanted, didn't I? I'm sorry, everyone. All right, let's get away from this sort of thing. Let's focus a little bit more back into Canadian politics. At least for the time being. We'll see what else I've got lined up for you. So this is from Blacklock's reporter. Libs find cash in New York City. October 15th, 2019. So I don't have the full thing because I'm not subscribed to Blacklocks. I don't feel like paying for my news. But it says here, the Liberal Party will not disclose details of a private mid-campaign fundraiser attended by unnamed donors in New York City. The Canadian Consul General in New York, a former Liberal contributor, did not take Blacklock's question. It was a Canadian citizen's home. But this is a perfect place for some of these billionaires that fund a lot of the activity here in Canada. This is a perfect place for them to rub shoulders with the Liberal Party. People like George Soros, or is it Tom Steyer was the guy's name. Hold on. Tom Steyer. Yeah, I think it's him. Yeah, okay, Tom Steyer. American billionaire who's one of the people that has financed the tar sands campaign, which is meant to landlock Canadian oil so we can't get it out to international markets and make money off it. Meanwhile, these people have put money into American oil industries where they've made a killing simply because Canada's oil cannot compete against the American oil. Now, there's more to this story because we go now to the True North Center. Former Clinton aide organized private Liberal election fundraiser in New York City. Justin Cooper is the notorious staffer who was responsible for setting up a private email for Clinton during her time as Secretary of State in the Obama administration. So this is the one who set up this whole meeting in New York City with the Liberal Party. Former senior aide to Hillary Clinton and former Clinton Foundation advisor Justin Cooper was one of the organizers of an exclusive New York City fundraiser held by Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party of Canada, True North has learned. As Blacklocks reported on Tuesday, the fundraising event for Liberal expatriates living in New York City was held on October 10th at an unknown address. While all political donations must be publicly disclosed, the deadline for reporting donors to Election Canada is not until 2 months after the election. So this is all going to blow by the time that the election's over and done with. And even if this comes out and it turns out that there were big American money that was involved with this, you think that's going to change the election results? Like, if the Liberals get in again, then it's going to change anything? Like, they're going to suddenly cancel it or make the next runner-up, which would be the Conservative Party, make them the new government or anything like that? Doubtful. At best, if the Liberals have a minority government, it could trigger a vote of no confidence, which could make Canada go back to the polls. But that is the absolute best that could happen. Moving on. Liberal MP Mark Miller attended the New York fundraising event, Blacklocks reported, stating that Miller agreed with the Liberal Party of Canada through oral discussion to attend a meet and greet among Canadian citizens living in New York City on October 10, 2019, at a Canadian citizens' home in New York, and collect donations from these Canadian citizens for his Canadian election campaign. It is not clear whether only Canadian citizens were invited or if Americans and other foreigners were also in attendance. Cooper is the notorious staffer who was responsible for setting up a private email for Clinton during her time as Secretary of State in the Obama administration, which some say cost her the bid for the presidency. Clinton's private server was registered to Justin Cooper. This is not the first time the Trudeau campaign has been working behind closed doors for Hillary Clinton and her entourage. A 2014 email exchange made public through WikiLeaks showed that Trudeau's top aide, Gerald Butts, and other Liberal staffers were begging Clinton's top aides, Huma Abedin and John Podesta, for one-on-one meetings and a photo op with Trudeau and Clinton. Abedin said, there was some unhappiness that they used this event to raise money for their political party when this was supposed to be a complete apolitical event. So there you go. The involvement of a former Clinton aide with one of the most corrupt American politicians of all time that tells you everything you need to know. But this type of corruption runs deep between the Democratic Party and the Liberal Party. Because the Liberals have Canada 2020, which I've talked about before in the past, a few times. Canada 2020 was started up by friends of Justin Trudeau, Tom Pitfield being one, who is married to Anna Gainey, who up until about last year was the president of the Liberal Party, and Canada 2020, which is pretty much the PR firm of the Trudeau Liberals, has worked closely with John Podesta's Center for American Progress. A lot of the people that work for Tom Pitfield at his company, Data Sciences, have also worked on the Trudeau campaign. Data Sciences, which harvests your data, have a bunch of people working at the Trudeau Foundation, and this is the sole company that works with the Liberalist server, the Liberal Party server, which is used to map out all of Canada, so they figure out where are we going to win, where are we going to lose, where is it contested, and we can focus our door-to-door knockers. Where can we focus our ad campaigns in order to beat out the Conservatives? The swing riding sort of thing is what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of corruption that runs deep between the Liberal Party and the Democratic Party. The two are the same. It's two sides of the same coin. All right, let's see here. What are we at to? Oh, great. Boy, oh boy. I'm not liking the look of these results right now. We have 146 for the Liberals. We got 106 for the Conservatives. We've got 33 for the Bloc Québécois, 18 for the NDP, 1 for the Greens. And let's see how far to the west we've gotten. I'm guessing we're probably starting to see results for BC. Oh, I'm sorry about that, everyone. I don't know if you heard it. I burped right into my microphone. I did not mean to do that. Flipped out. Okay. So we're starting to see results come in for BC. Some conservative, some NDP, a little bit of Liberal. I mean, for me personally, I don't really think too much is going to change when it comes to the... I don't really think much is going to change when it comes to whether the Conservatives got in or not. But there are some small changes that can be made that are important. The Liberal Party, they are disastrous, and I want them out absolutely. But I'm not going to be one of these people that pretends that Andrew Scheer, if he wins the upcoming, if he just somehow happens to win this election, I don't think he's the savior of Canada, as many people are pretending that he is. I mean, right-wing Twitter right now, it's a little, it's cringy would be the best word for it. All these people saying, I'm voting to, like, Andrew Scheer is going to save Canada. He's going to unite Canada. They're acting like he's some sort of Trump figure. He's not even close to that. Andrew Scheer is a weak leader. He's a better leader than Trudeau. Trudeau is absolutely a weak leader on the world stage. But what I don't like about Andrew Scheer is that he's an unprincipled leader, in my opinion. This is a guy that claims to be for free speech that kicks out people from his party because of what they say. We can look back to what happened with Lynn Bayak, who is the former conservative senator, now sits as an independent. We can look at what happened to Salim Mansour and a couple others that have been kicked out of the Conservative Party simply for what they ended up saying. This is a guy who claims to be pro-life and says, I won't open up a debate when it comes to abortion. I mean, you can't even open up the debate when it comes to late-term abortion. Granted, I mean, there's plenty of people out there who are saying they're not going to vote for Andrew Scheer because he's going to end all abortion in Canada. He would never do that because that would not be a way to get the moderate voter here in Canada. But he can't even have a debate on it or express his true feelings, say like, hey, you know what, late-term abortion, they're ripping the baby apart. Maybe this is not such a good idea. Have the first trimester abortion, but, maybe when you reach the 6 to 9 month mark, then we need to call it quits there. I mean, if you're going to have an abortion at 6 to 9 months, that isn't health related, saying like the woman will not live if she has to go through childbirth or something of the sort, then you're kind of a fucked up human being who's just aborting a child simply because you've changed your mind, pretty much. But I'd rather see Andrew Scheer in as the Prime Minister than I would like to see Justin Trudeau in, without a doubt. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the direction our future is taking, and we're going to talk a little bit about immigration. So, hold on. Let's just take a quick look through Twitter and see see if there's anything. Let's see. Chris Minister, smartassery, what's going on in Canada? Bill Morneau, the same asshole who called hardworking Canadians tax cheats, the same guy who has secret monies and offshore tax having, gets voted in. Great. Torontonians are the stupid people in the face of the planet. Absolutely, Jill Colton. Abso-fucking-lutely, you're right. Jill Colton has more balls than a lot of fucking guys out there, and it's actually quite sad. Mike Phillip from American Nuct, who was actually on Derek Rain's stream earlier tonight that I was watching. Says, I'm watching coverage of the Canadian federal election, and it's reinforcing my views that Canada is a backwater banana republic. He's right on that. I don't agree with everything that he ends up saying. I mean, I disagreed with a few things that he said on Derek's stream tonight, but he's definitely right on that. All right, so let's talk about the future a little bit. Do you remember...
Podshare is...
There we go. Do you remember just a little while ago, there was this sort of news coverage and people talking about pods in which you rent a small living space, pretty much a bed. That's what you get. And then that's your life. You rent this small little area, $1,200 a month in rent, and then you have all your other spaces provided for you. You got your toiletries provided for you. You get your kitchenware provided for you. I think you still have to pay for your groceries. I'm not 100%. But this is from CNN Business. And let's see what they have to say on it, because this is going to tie in to the direction that the world is going in.
Podshare is affordable shared housing that we build across Los Angeles, and here in San Francisco is our first site. The idea, it's membership-based housing, so if you book a pod, you can stay across the whole network of locations. I was born in the USSR in 1985. My whole concept was like the idea of the government giving you everything in a communist state. What if you could subscribe to a housing membership and have all your needs met? In the fridge, there should just be like cereal, ramen, collegiate foods. And there should always be toothpaste and toilet paper and just these basic things that you just need to live. Like they should just be handled for you. And that's kind of the concept of Podshare. You just share pods across a network with people that become your friends.
This location has 2 bathrooms, and this one's currently being used. So I won't show you the bathroom, but I will show you the pods. In each pod, you can see here, there's obviously a mattress, pillows, linens, your essentials. This is my pod right here. As most people know, like housing in San Francisco is chaos. I founded a company called Flipmass. We do Instagram influencer advertising. Our business does pretty well. I actually pay myself really conservatively. I earn about $3,000 per month. I tried living in San Francisco on that budget. I was able to do it, but it was really, really hard.
Podshare model is really for myself, which is solo, single, no children, no pets. Like I'm really just building something I want to live in.
As a software engineer, I can definitely afford this place. I can have savings as well. And at the same time, I am getting all the value that the city holds.
All right, I think that's enough. I think we've seen all we need to know to understand what the pods are, and actually it looks like even their food and stuff is provided for them. All this for $1,200 a month. So pretty much you get no privacy, your whole life is exposed to everybody else, you have everything provided for you. I thought it was a little ironic that this first woman that they were talking to, this one here, Elvina Beck, talked about how she was born in the USSR, and then proceeds to say how great it is to have things provided for you. Apparently, she doesn't know enough about her own history to know how many people were murdered underneath this exact type of thing that she's trying to propose. But even there's certain things that would concern me living in this situation. I've lived in apartment buildings before. I've spent about 5 years total where I've lived in apartment buildings. And you know what was one of the main problems in apartment buildings? Bed bugs. And it didn't fucking matter how pristinely clean your house was or how disgustingly messy it was. You always had this problem because you fumigated one area, and then they would, like one unit, it would move into all the units around it. Above, below, to the sides. So you could never really get away. This is just welcoming bed bugs and cockroaches and all of these little critters into your life and never being able to get rid of it. Now, the reason I really bring this up is because it reminds me of an article that was written for Forbes, and this seems to be the direction that the world is going in. So this was written for Forbes, I see up here 2016, but I actually want to say it was like the year earlier, 2015. Maybe maybe it was the day it was archived. Nope. Okay. Maybe this was written in 2016 then. But it was called Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, I have no privacy, and life has never been better. Welcome to year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say, our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. Pretty much it all gets shared. First, communication became digitalized and free to everyone. Then, when clean energy became free, things started to move quickly. Transportation dropped off dramatically in price. It made no sense for us to own cars anymore because we could call a driverless vehicle or a flying car for longer journeys within minutes. We start transporting ourselves in a much more organized and coordinated way when public transportation became easier, quicker, and more convenient than the car. Now I can hardly believe that we accepted congestion and traffic jams. Not to mention the air pollution from combustion engines. What were we thinking? Now there's a lot more in this. The whole idea of this article was to prepare people for a future where, well, we're pretty much talking about a communist future here, but a future where all of your activities is monitored and captured, all the locations you visit to, all the freedoms that you enjoy are taken away. One of the greatest inventions in our society was the car, because the car gave the freedom of mobility to anyone. It gave you the ability to drive across the country. It gave you the ability to up and move wherever you wanted to go, more or less, with some restrictions such as crossing the ocean. But this whole article is meant to take away that freedom of you. It's preparing you for the take away that freedom, or at the very least, to have that ability to just get up one day and go wherever you want to go, taken away. I mean, even you look at today, like almost every single bus has a video camera on it. And with today's facial recognition technology, they know where you're going. And this is pretty much the same when it comes to trains and airports and airplanes. But now you even have Uber and Lyft, which great apps. They're better than taxis without a doubt. But all the data of the locations you've gone to have been collected. Your privacy is gone, except for in your own car. Even then, there are some areas where that's being taken away from you, such as in the Teslas. Because the Teslas need to use your satellite location in order to drive your car. But they're taking away your freedom of mobility without being monitored these days. So this is the whole thing, and more. It goes into much more detail in this article. In our city, we don't pay any rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we do not need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I am not there. So you don't own any property. They allow you, under the good graces of government, to stay in a location. Once in a while, I will choose to cook for myself. It is easy. The necessary kitchen equipment is delivered at my door within minutes. Since transportation became free, we have stopped having all those things stuffed into our home. Why keep a pasta maker and a crepe cooker crammed into our cupboards? We can just order them when we need them. Environmental problems seem far away since we only use clean energy and clean production methods. The air is clean, the water is clean, and nobody would dare touch the protected space and plants and trees all over. I still do not understand why in the past we filled all free spots in the city with concrete. So now, preparing you to move off of fossil fuels over to the clean, new, green, and reusable energy. Something that is unsustainable in and of itself, which has been proven time and time again. As well as for some of these situations, the terrible environmental impact that they have, such as windmills, wind turbines, which destroys the bird population. They fly into it and murders the shit out of them. Why do you think, at least in Ontario, Why do you think Doug Ford canceled the Green Energy Initiative? It was because it was just wasting money and wasn't giving anything back. Moving on. Shopping? I can't really remember what that is. For most of us, it has been turned into choosing things to use. Sometimes I find this fun, and sometimes I just want the algorithm to do it for me. It knows my taste better than I do by now. This just reminded me of Amazon. Amazon, which spies on absolutely anything you do and advertises to you what you want all the time. You ever been looking underneath something specific on Amazon? Let's say your games, video games, or books. Suddenly, all over your internet browser, you're having these advertisements for books and video games from Amazon because the algorithm is choosing it for you. When AI and robots took over so much of our work, we suddenly had time to eat well, sleep well, and spend time with other people. The concept of rush hour makes no sense anymore since the work that we do can be done at any time. I don't really know if I would call it work anymore. It's more like thinking time, creation time, and development time. I think I'm going to end talking about this right here, but you can go find it if you want. Just look up Forbes, Welcome to 2030, I own nothing. And you'll be able to find it. But it even goes on to say pretty much about how, from the perspective of how this is being written, that the person who is writing it feels bad for those who live outside the city, because these are primitive people who have decided to reject this new great existence. This new great existence where everything's provided for you, you have no privacy, but this is the way it's going on. And this is the way that the direction that the world is moving into right now. Everywhere you go is being monitored. Even your metadata on your cell phone, it monitors you, and you can also be used to track you. They know where you are because of cell towers. Different cell towers will they'll tell you where you are. If you decide to go 50 kilometers to the east, well, all those cell towers that your cell phone is connected to will tell you that. We know that your camera and your microphone can be hacked into, so that way it can see you and listen to you wherever you are. The only way you can get away from this is if you buy yourself an old style phone, an old cell phone where this technology, the hardware, has not been built into your phone. But any of the new ones, even if you go for something more basic, all these abilities. There's all this abilities. So in my opinion, some of this is actually scarily accurate. Even though this was 3 years ago, it's scarily accurate to some of the things that are happening right now. I mean, even now, there's millions of people out there that have a listening device that they've welcomed into their home through the Echo, the Alexas, the Google Homes. This is exactly what they're doing. They're listening to you all the time, not just when you say, Alexa, buy me this, Alexa, play music. It's one of the reasons I will never, ever have one of these technologies in my home. Sure, it'd be convenient as hell, but I'll never fucking have one in my home. Alright, let's go back to election results. Alright. So we have 196 of 338 ridings called. We have 149 seats for the Liberals, 150 for the Liberals, 118 for the Conservatives, 35 for the Bloc, 24 for the NDP, 3 for the Greens, 0 for the PPC, and 0 for the others such as the Libertarian Party, the Christian Heritage Party, all those people. Alright, so as it stands when it comes to difference in seats, the Conservatives have actually gained 23 seats. The Bloc are doing actually pretty well. They've gained 25 seats. The NDP are still losing, minus 15. And the Greens are up 1 seat. Liberals are still down 27 seats, but we'll end up seeing what comes out of this. But Canada has not learned. Canada has not learned from 4 years of Justin Trudeau. And I thought at the very least something like the blackface scandal would have woken people up to everything. But that's not the case. When we're looking at the popular vote, we've got 34.2% for the Liberals, 33.48% for the Conservatives. But yeah, as it stands right now, it looks like the NDP are going to be relegated to a fourth party position, and the Bloc Québécois are going to retake them. The Bloc Québécois, that's impressive actually, because they were dead in the water for the most part just a few years ago. Liberals are getting dangerously close to minority government, too. Alright. See here. Mo Lester, time for the West to separate. Yeah. I mean, I live in Ontario. I would hate to see it go, but it's not like I could really blame you guys if you wanted to separate. Another 4 years of the Trudeau government is just going to kill you. I mean, the amount of damage that just the last 4 years has done to Alberta, the thousands, hundreds of thousands that have been put out of work because of Justin Trudeau and his policies. And if nothing else, I thought that there would be people that would be so embarrassed by Justin Trudeau and his actions on the world stage that this would be one reason they would vote for another candidate such as the Conservative Party. Because, he's been a failure all around. He's destroyed our relationship with the US, and it's not going to get any better just because he gets voted back into office. He has failed on trade with China, which I don't even want trade with China to begin with. But if we're going to, China, America's our biggest trading partner. China is the second biggest trading partner of ours. So if we were going to be distancing ourselves from the US, the only place to go is towards China. And he has failed when it comes to votes, when it comes to securing trade deals with them. He embarrassed the shit out of the entire country. In India, that was unbearably bad. Unbearably bad. And I mean, he's also been trying to increase censorship on the internet, which is something he's going to do after he gets elected back into office, apparently. This is unbelievable. I mean, not really. I'm just saying it's unbelievable, but this is ridiculous. That's a better way to put it. I swear, I'm 26 years old, and I'm going to have a fucking aneurysm because of these results. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about some immigration. So this video here is a dramatization, so it's not real, but I think it's a good video for what it's going to show us about the future that mass immigration is going to hold for our countries, not just in Canada, but in the US, in Europe, all these countries around the world.
Birthday to you.
Make a wish. Granny.
Hello.
Have you done your homework?
Adam.
For a general strike.
Ready or not? Here it comes.
Violent clashes with
live ammunition against.
Deserve to get shot.
Have a nice day, Mum.
airstrikes on rebel position.
We are going to stay.
What's happening?
Go.
Heavy functioning
Happy birthday to you. Make a wish, darling.
So that's what? Many requests. So that's a dramatization of the possible future that could come out of mass migration, but I would say the most likely future that comes out of mass migration. Because one of the problems is too, when mass migration, one of the main problems is the fact that you have a bunch of people that you bring in, you can't really vet them, and you can't really integrate them. You can't really do either because there's too many of them. Even right now in Canada, when we're bringing in 350,000 every single year, but that only includes the people that come in for to become into immigration. That doesn't include the asylum seekers. That does not include the people who come in on working visas. That does not include the people who come in as international students. And the last three, the international students, the temporary workers, and the asylum seekers, are all fast ways to get to to citizenship level. And then they decide who gets to they get to decide in our elections, like now. For instance, like I'm going back a little bit when I'm talking about that Uber driver who seemed like he was from Africa because he still had a thick accent, saying he was going to vote for Justin Trudeau. So this guy that was born in another country, he was a very nice guy, nothing against him personally, but this guy that was born in a completely different country gets to decide what government I have to live under. A government that doesn't speak for me, a government that does not represent me, but represents him. And we're already seeing the clashes that are happening in over in Europe right now. Places like France, places like the UK, places like Germany. Well, there was the whole Rotherham crisis that's been going on since like the 2010s, where you had thousands of Muslim immigrants who were trafficking European women and children and murdering some of them. Thousands of these guys that were doing this. And it was covered up by the police. In fact, and the thing is hold on. Canada. This is exactly what they want for Canada. Hold on. Here we go. From the CBC, 2018. Canada's population needs to be 100 million people by the year 2100. Canada's current population is about 40 million right now, I think. 37.06 million people in Canada as of 2018. So they want to add almost 3 times to our population in less than 100 years. On top of this, it's not going to be through Canadian families that are doing this. It's going to be done through replacement migration. The UN has admitted the whole point of immigration is to replace the native population, replace us. And hold on, Canada birth rates. So, oh, fuck, that is a terrible graph. Hold on. Let's take a look at some fertility rates. Number of births. We're hovering around 383,000 or so. Number of births in Canada. Fertility rate is 1.54. That's a pretty low number. Your number should be 2.1 for a healthy population per woman, because you want to replace both the husband and the wife want to replace themselves. 2.1 because You're replacing yourself plus adding a little bit extra. A little bit extra for a population growth. Now, from what I've heard, when you hit 1.6 fertility rate, birth rate, you're in a crisis. When you hit 1.3 births per woman, there's no going back. You can't get the population back. You can't get the demographics back. You're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And the average age of maternity at first birth keeps going older and older and older. Every single year, it's gotten a little bit older. So this is a crisis that we're in, but they're trying to use mass migration to replace us. When you have a fucking Somali man acting as our immigration minister who has gone out of his way to force Canada to take on more immigrants than the citizens want. Hold on, I think I got it here. I think I got it somewhere. Here on Twitter. Here it is. And is actually circumventing the system so that way more immigrants can come in, despite the fact that this is not what the more immigrants can come in on what would you call that? What would you call that? On visas that, I guess we'll say, on visas that are supposed to be temporary, but then giving them the path to permanent residency. This is exactly what he is talking about in here.
Immigration Canada that most of you may not have heard of is called the Startup Visa Program, where if you're a promising startup and you want to move to Canada, not only will we allow you to do that, we will give you permanent residency. Even though the program is called a Startup Visa, it's actually a permanent residency program, where the owner, the CEO, the family members, the workers will all be given permanent residency to come and scale up in Canada. So I know that Pakistan has a very thriving startup industry, but they may not have access to venture capital the way that we do in Canada. So this is an opportunity for both countries to win and invest in Canada and scale up. It's good for both countries.
And he's talking about Pakistan, of all fucking places, a terrorist-laden fucking shithole. But on top of that, not only is it a terrorist-filled shithole, it's also filled with fucking inbreeding. And you think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding whatsoever. There is a significant amount of people from Pakistan that are first cousins or brothers and sisters that are husband and wives. There is a crap ton of inbreeding. Let me see here. In fact, in the UK right now, Pakistani women are leading the are leading when it comes to stillbirths because there's so much fucking inbreeding. First cousin marriage in Pakistani communities leading to appalling disabilities among children. And the thing is, too, is I've definitely, in my life, came across some Pakistani people that didn't seem right to me. There was something off about them. And now it makes sense. Because maybe even if they weren't inbred through their parents being brother and sister or first cousins, their genes were fucked up because there was so much inbreeding. And Ahmed Hussein is now allowing people from Pakistan to a startup business. They're going to bring in the owner, the CEO, and the family members into the country. That is chain migration right there. And then most times when they do this, they bring them into the city. Well, that's not what they're going to be doing. In fact, they're going to start now putting them out in rural communities. Because it's not bad enough to force the native white population out of the cities. Now they want to make sure it's everywhere so that you can't escape it. See. And now it's gotten to the point. Where Canada's border agencies cancels arrest warrants for people it wants to deport but cannot find. Millions of people come to Canada every year to work, study, and visit. Tens of thousands more come to make asylum claims. When their visas expire and their refugee claims are rejected, they are supposed to leave, but not everyone does. Currently, there are more than 48,000 active arrest warrants in Canada for people wanted on immigration violations. According to the Canada Border Service Agency, the vast majority of these cases involve people wanted for deportation. But these figures do not tell the whole story. Global News has learned that the CBSA cancels arrest warrants for failed refugee claimants and other people wanted for removal who it cannot find, even in cases where it is not clear whether a person has left Canada. What's more, the CBSA does not track how many warrants it cancels in cases where a person's whereabouts are unknown. Because the CBSA only recently started tracking people when they exit the country by land and still doesn't track people who leave by air, there's no way for the government or CBSA to say for sure how many people have overstayed their welcome. And those that do stay here are given taxpayer money in order to support themselves, buy their own homes. I mean, think about the illegal border crossers down south that were being put up in a 5-star hotel that was being paid for by the taxpayers, and then the government was even thinking about buying it. And then there's the $50,000 checks that were going to all the Syrian refugees. $50,000 checks for coming into Canada. I don't make that per year. I'm sure many of you out there don't make $50,000 a year either. But these people are welcomed into our country, and then they're just given our money, which should be earmarked for us. That's why it's time to close the borders. Because it's time to look after Canadians. It's time to look after ourselves. Not the freeloaders coming to our country. They've had enough. Enough of them have been given a free ride. It's time to close down the borders. But is that even possible anymore after the Global Compact on Migration? And we'll continue a little bit more when it comes to immigration in just a minute, but first, let's go check out on some results. Alright, we have 254 writings that have been called. We have 160 seats for the Liberals, 116 for the Conservatives, 34 for the Bloc Québécois, 25 for the NDP, 3 for the Greens, 0 for the PPC, and 0 for the other parties, Christian Heritage Party, Libertarian Party, and the likes. Man, the Bloc Québécois really did carve out a nice piece of Quebec over there, didn't they? You know, many people thought that Quebec, when it seemed to be diverting away from the Liberal Party, was going to go to the Conservatives, or at least part of it was going to go to the Conservatives, but apparently a lot of it has just decided to go for the Bloc Québécois. And you know what? I welcome the Quebec separatists. When I was younger, I was saying, no, let's not have Quebec separate. Absolutely. Let's allow Quebec to separate because we don't fucking need them. We do not need Quebec as a province. It's a freeloading, it is a fucking freeloading society, a freeloading province that doesn't give anything back, but is making all these special demands, as well as the equalization payments. As soon as that stops, the Quebec is going to be screwed. I'm guaranteeing you, give it a year, maybe 2 of Quebec separated being its own country, they're going to beg Canada to welcome them back. Because they don't have really much of an economy. They got some manufacturing and stuff over there, they got some tech, but not enough to prop up their economy. So pretty damn quickly, they're going to become a third world country if they decide to separate. And I actually wonder, if Quebec decided to separate, whether a lot of these these Albertan separatists... Hold on. Sorry about that. I wonder if... Sorry about that. I had something caught in my throat for a second. if Quebec separated, I wonder if a lot of these Albertan separatists, these people of the Wexit movement, I wonder if they would actually reconsider separating from Canada if they didn't have to make their equalization payments to Quebec. And it looks like the Liberals have lost a couple seats. 157, down from 160. Because some of these they're calling, but if you look at the top here, you've got the popular vote underneath elected, so those ones have been definitely called, and then who's leading underneath them. So it's possible that the lead could change, especially in a lot of these swing ridings. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit more, talk about a little bit more, and then we'll do one more check up on the polls, and then I'm going to sign off because I have to be at work at 6 in the morning tomorrow. I don't know what I have here that I want to talk about, though. Let's see. Oh, yeah, there's this, eh? All right, we got this. So it's not a long story. It's kind of funny, to be honest. Maybe some of you heard it already. Some of you have not. Naked photo emerges of Congresswoman Kate Hill. Democratic Congresswoman Kate Hill brushing a staffer's hair while naked. Oh no, Kate. Say it ain't so. Apparently, this woman was involved in a polygamous relationship known as a throuple. It was her, her staffer, as well as her ex-husband. Oh no. You know, she's not even that attractive. How the fuck did she, land a throuple relationship, let alone a marriage? House Democrat accused of throuple relationship with female staffer and ex-husband, then reportedly left them for another campaign worker. So, I'll give you one guess. Or you know what? I'll give you two guesses as to who probably leaked this photo and this story to the press. Photograph and text messages obtained by Red State show that Representative Hill was involved in a long-term sexual relationship with a female campaign staffer. The woman, whose name is not being released, was hired by Hill in late 2017 and quickly became involved in a throuple relationship with Hill and her estranged husband, Kenny Heslip. Heslip and the staffer, according to a text message provided to Red State, believed the polyamorous arrangement to be a long-term committed relationship. The trio took multiple vacations together, including to Alaska, where this photograph was taken. This one here. Looks kind of... It looks like you just looking down here at her hips. She looks kind of like got fat hips and saggy tits, to be honest. Ugh. Red State was also provided with intimate photographs of the women, which we have chosen not to publish. According to a source close to the staffer, the throuple agreed to continue their committed relationship when Hill moved to Washington, D.C. on January 2019, and that Heslip and the staffer quickly noticed a difference in Hill's demeanor. By late May, Hill broke off her relationship with both Heslip and the staffer, claiming she wanted to focus on this important work and that it was unfair to be involved in a relationship. The staffer, as these text messages show, was distraught and trying to figure out how to move on with her life. According to the text message reviewed, after Hill left the throuple, Heslip was told by numerous sources that Hill had been involved in a sexual relationship for a year with her then finance director, now legislative director, Graham Kelly. That seems to be all of it, except for one last tweet. Kate Hill, as the first openly LGBTQ woman elected to Congress, of course. From California, I'm so excited to be here at the CNN and HRC Power of Our Pride Town Hall. It's deeply heartening to hear how dedicated these voices are to LGBTQ equality. Why am I not surprised that she's involved with the LGBT community? Why am I not surprised? Oh boy. But yeah, she's been getting some heat over this being released right now. And I actually think it's kind of hilarious, to be honest. I don't really know if there's anything else I wanted to talk. Oh, right. There is one more thing we're going to cover. All right. Apparently that didn't work. Remember when we were talking about... hold on. Let me see. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Remember we said how cucked UK was when we were talking a little bit earlier? And we talked a little bit about the abortion thing. Well, UK police are now investigating transgender being turned down for a porn role as a hate crime. Written by Paul Joseph Watson. 25-year-old Rhea Cooper, who became the UK's youngest transgender person 10 years ago, received messages on WhatsApp about an anonymous photographer who wanted to have sex on camera and sell the tape. However, when the photographer found out that Cooper still had male reproductive organs, he said he couldn't work with her because she has a cock. This prompted Cooper to alert Humberside police to this transphobic behavior, and authorities are now investigating whether a hate crime was committed. A spokeswoman for Humberside police said, "We received a report of a hate incident yesterday on Wednesday, October 16th. The report has been logged and we will be investigating. The UK violence crime rate has risen 19% in the last year. Fatal stabbings are becoming commonplace in major cities. But thank God police resources are being wasted on the urgent issue of transgender being offended over words." Now, this is actually very fair discrimination to do in the porn scene. I mean, if you're hiring a woman to fuck, you're expecting some vagina. And if a woman, quote unquote, shows up with a cock, that's going to cause some problems. On top of that, you also have the problems that you know what your audience wants to see. If you're a straight porn actor, they're coming to watch you because they want to see straight porn, which means they don't want to see a cock in the middle of your porn shoot. That is a fast way for your entire audience just to unsubscribe. And then you got no money. This is actually very fair discrimination to do. But even as Paul Joseph Watson puts out, they're having all these problems over there in the UK with gang violence, with stabbings, with just like a year or two ago, there were a lot of fucking terrorist attacks happening. But the UK police find it more important to investigate a quote unquote hate crime. And this really is a clown world, ladies and gentlemen. This really is a clown fucking world. Alright. One last check on the election results, and then I'm out of here. I gotta work early. So, the final result for tonight, we will know for sure by tomorrow, but it ain't fucking looking good right now for Canada. We have 157 for the Liberals, 120 for the Conservatives, 32 for the Bloc Québécois, so it looks like they've lost a few seats, 25 for the NDP, 4 for the Greens, and 0 for the PPC, 0 for the other. So that's currently where we stand. I'm actually a little surprised. I thought the PPC would be doing better, but it does not look like that. I mean, 0 elected, 0 leads. There's nobody. Maxime Bernier, it doesn't look like he's won back his seat. It looks like he's out of office. So, it is what it is. Only thing I really want to look more into... Actually, maybe I can do that from here. Oh, here we go. Use a riding. Oh. There's one riding in specifically I want to check out. Okay, so Boost. Let's check out Boost. Yeah, it looks like it went to the Conservative candidate over there in Boost. And the other one from Quebec that I want to see. Let's check out Papineau. Let's see Justin Trudeau's riding. There we go, Papineau. Yeah, Justin Trudeau got back in office. That was the one thing I was really hoping to see. I was really hoping to see it go to somebody else, was the Papineau riding, even if it was the Bloc Québécois, because then Justin Trudeau would be out of the House of Commons. And I don't know really how that would work with being the Prime Minister. I mean, I think you still could be the Prime Minister, but he couldn't be in the House of Commons. He would have to wait until there was a by-election that he could run in and win. So that's the last thing I wanted to check. All right, everyone, I'm taking off now. I do appreciate you all who tuned in. I know that there were many different options you could go to today when it comes to who you can listen to talk. And I know that there were some more interesting people out there you very easily could have gone to and listened to talk about this situation. I appreciate you choosing me. Take care of yourselves. Maybe we'll have good luck. Maybe there'll be some turnaround in the next little bit, and the Conservatives can pull out a win. But right now, it's not looking good for Canada, and I don't know if I can take another 4 years of Justin Trudeau. But we'll find out tomorrow morning. Thank you all. Have a great night.